Anna Ecklund had once been a quiet, pious girl. She sang in the choir. She helped her mother clean the church every Sunday. And by age 14, she could recite entire psalms from memory. But something changed. At age 16, she began refusing the Eucharist. She cursed priests under her breath. She snarled during blessings. And when her own father tried to drag her into a confessional, she bit him. Her voice deep, masculine, spat out Latin she had never learned. Her family thought it was rebellion. The priest, he wasn't so sure. Over the next few years, Anna's condition worsened. Food would rot when she touched it. She screamed at crosses and religious icons. And when she entered a church, the air turned cold, candles flickered, and she collapsed in seizures. Doctors said it was mental illness, but when the family brought her to Father Theophilus Riesinger, a German-born Capuchin priest known for his exorcisms, he asked her just one question: "Anna, do you believe in God?" She stared at him with blackened eyes, then said in a voice that wasn't hers, "I believe in pain." In 1912, Father Riesinger performed his first exorcism on Anna. It lasted 2 days. She screamed, she vomited, she levitated. Then, suddenly, she fell still. The spirits were gone for a while, but demons don't forgive defeat. 16 years later, they came back, stronger, and this time, they didn't come alone. Anna's aunt whispered of witchcraft, said Anna's own father had abused her, then cursed her soul. Said Anna's dead Aunt Mina, a known blasphemer, had vowed from her deathbed to see Anna suffer in hell. The family dismissed the rumors, but Anna began speaking in multiple voices. One of them sounded like her father, the other, a woman who had died years ago, hissing and laughing in German. At night, Anna convulsed. She hissed at priests. She bent backwards until her spine cracked. One witness said she moved like a snake, but her face was still, like it wasn't hers anymore. On August 18, 1928, Anna entered the convent in Erling, Iowa. The church was cold, the nuns uneasy. During her first night there, she was asked to kneel and pray. She stood still. A soft voice urged her, "Anna, just kneel." But Anna didn't move. She stared at the crucifix with unblinking eyes. Then laughed, a laugh that didn't sound human. "He's already here," she said, "and you're too late." The nuns began to see shadows moving on the walls. Doors opened and slammed shut. Anna screamed at night, in languages she'd never learned. When Father Riesinger arrived at the convent, he'd brought 2 crosses, holy water, and a journal. He looked into Anna's eyes. "You're not Anna anymore, are you?" She answered with 6 voices. "We are many, we are legion, and she will never kneel again." The priest made the sign of the cross. Anna arched off the bed, foaming at the mouth, and so began the exorcism that would last 23 days. Behind the stained glass walls of a convent, evil was not cast out, it was invited, and the girl who wouldn't kneel, she wasn't just possessed, she was chosen. August 19, 1928, day 1 of the exorcism. Inside the cloistered convent of Erling, Iowa, the silence had already cracked. Father Theophilus Riesinger stood in the chapel's shadows, holding a crucifix so tightly his knuckles had turned white. Across the room, Anna Ecklund sat in a straight-backed wooden chair, eyes closed, hands resting in her lap, still as death. The nuns whispered prayers, and then she laughed, a laugh that didn't match her mouth. The exorcism began just after sunrise. Candles lit, holy water prepared, 3 nuns assigned to assist. Anna's body tensed as Father Riesinger began the ancient Latin rite, Exorcizo te omnis spiritus immundi. Anna didn't scream, not at first. She just smiled. Then her eyes snapped open solid black, and from her mouth came a deep, inhuman voice. "You are not welcome here, priest." The walls groaned, the candles flared, and the air turned to ice. One nun fainted on the spot. For 3 days, the torment escalated. Anna threshed violently. Chains were brought in heavy, iron bolted to the bed. She vomited strange substances, black bile, live insects. a foul-smelling mucus that reeked of sulfur and death. She spoke in perfect Latin, then Aramaic, then in guttural languages no one could identify. She named sins no one had confessed aloud. She recited the private thoughts of the nuns. One night, she shrieked, "Sister Agnes thinks of a man when she prays. Let's ask him to join us." Sister Agnes ran from the room sobbing. The manifestations weren't just vocal. Anna's body levitated above the bed. Once her limbs contorted backward, her head twisted fully to the side, and yet her eyes never blinked. A priest described it as watching a spider try to crawl out of a human shell. When Father Riesinger held up the crucifix, she hissed, "That thing won't save you," and then spat black fluid onto his cassock. It soon became clear Anna wasn't alone. During the sessions, multiple voices spoke from her mouth. There was Jacob, her father dead for 10 years. Still cruel, still controlling. "She's mine," he growled. "She was always mine." Then came Mina, the blasphemous aunt. Her voice was high-pitched, taunting, bitter. She recited Black Mass prayers in broken German. She laughed when the holy water touched Anna's skin and burned it. But worse was the third voice. It didn't have a name. It whispered, never yelled, calm, malevolent, ancient. It would only say, "We are in the walls now." The convent began to change. Crucifixes turned upside down overnight. Blood seeped from under Anna's bed no source ever found. The nuns heard footsteps at night, but when they opened the doors, there was no one there. One evening, as Father Riesinger approached the chapel, he found Latin carved into the stone wall. "She belongs to us." He demanded to know who had written it. Anna just laughed. Then she screamed and tore out clumps of her own hair. Even animals reacted. Cats hissed and ran from the convent. Birds flew in circles overhead but never landed. The trees outside began to wither, as if the ground itself had turned foul. One noon dared ask, "Is this hell?" Father Riesinger didn't answer. He simply held his crucifix tighter and kept reading. On the 6th night, Anna grew eerily calm. She sat up in bed and whispered to Father Riesinger, "You can stop this. I'll give you knowledge, power, a vision of what lies beyond the veil." He didn't respond. Anna smiled. "I can show you who you were before the cloth." She then described, in intimate detail, a sin he'd never told anyone. Something from before he took his vows. Father Riesinger staggered back. The other priests grabbed him as Anna rose and screamed, "You think you're holy? You're as damned as I am?" Then her body slammed against the ceiling, hard, once, twice, 3 times, and she laughed every time. On the 12th night, something changed. Anna stopped speaking. Her eyes remained open, but she didn't blink, didn't move, didn't breathe. For 5 whole minutes, the nuns thought she was dead, but when they touched her, she snapped upright and screamed in 6 voices, "We will not leave." Windows shattered, candles exploded, blood poured from her mouth as her body convulsed so violently that the mattress split down the middle. One noon fled the room and never returned. Father Riesinger fell to his knees, shaking. He whispered, "God forgive us. What if she wasn't possessed? What if she was a door?" They called it a possession, but no rite, no scripture, no holy water could explain what was happening inside that convent. The walls bled, voices echoed, and Anna, if it was still Anna, never slept again. Her eyes stayed open, watching, waiting, listening for something else to come through. In a convent hidden deep in the fields of Erling, Iowa, time had lost its meaning. For 23 days, Anna Ecklund writhed, screamed, and levitated as priests, nuns, and shadows watched from the fringes. The girl who wouldn't kneel was no longer a girl, and what spoke through her was not meant to be heard. By the 2nd week of the exorcism, Anna refused food, water, or even daylight. The windows in her room were boarded shut. Candles flickered despite no wind. The walls sweated. And the smell. Dear God, the smell. One nun described it as rotting flesh soaked in bile. Another fainted just from entering the room. Anna's body shrank. Her skin, pale and cracked, was etched with markings that hadn't been there before. Latin phrases, etched from the inside out. When Father Riesinger demanded her name, the voice that answered wasn't hers. Anna replied with possessed voice, multiple layers. "We are those who watched the nails driven in." Then, her eyes bled. It was during the third ritual, on day 12, that Father Riesinger began documenting names. Anna, or what lived inside her, shouted them out in languages she never knew. Beelzebub, Judas, Mina, her father. Each name sent the room into chaos. Crucifixes rattled, the wooden floor cracked, and Anna's mouth stretched open to far screaming in 6 distinct voices at once. One nun whispered. It sounded like a choir of devils beneath the earth. They didn't sleep that night, or any night after. Anna began reacting violently to holy water. Her body smoked when touched by it. She twisted into impossible shapes. Her spine cracked loudly as she contorted backward until her head touched her heels. When the priest placed the Eucharist in her mouth, she spat it out still whole, screaming. And a demonic voice. "He feeds us lies, but we feast on blood." The smell of sulfur flooded the room, and the candles blew out on their own. The deeper Father Riesinger went, the more personal the attacks became. The voice inside Anna knew his sins, his doubts, even the face of a child he had lost during the war. One night, he woke in his bed to the sound of whispering, in Latin, coming from inside the walls. Whispers Latin, overlapping voices. Venemus, non abibimus. "We have come, we will not leave." He opened his journal. The pages were soaked in ink that wasn't there the night before. On the last page was a drawing of Anna, with no face. By day 23, Anna was a shell, her body bruised, her eyes yellow, her teeth chipped from biting at the iron bed frame. But something had changed. She was quiet, too quiet. The priest performed the final rites. He held up the crucifix, and Anna let out one final shriek, a voice not hers, nor the others, one that sounded like a child, begged, an unknown voice, "Please, let me go." And then silence, real silence. No whispers, no flickering lights, just peace. Anna collapsed, her body cold, but alive, her eyes clear for the first time in years. She whispered, "Anna weakly." He was in the walls, watching all of you. Father Riesinger left the convent the next morning. He never performed another exorcism again. The nuns burned Anna's mattress. The room was sealed shut. They said shadows still moved across the floor, even after the door was bricked up. Anna survived, but she never spoke of what she saw. When the voices spoke through her, and what's worse, some say she wasn't possessed. She was visited by something older than hell.